What's up, guys? Welcome to Inside Traders, where we talk all things markets and other intro stuff. My name is Caleb. Welcome to the show. Today, I want to talk about Bitcoin. Excuse me. And specifically, I want to talk about how to take all of this fake fiat money. Let me just get a drink. Sponsored, of course, as always, by Monster Energy Drink. How to take this, there we go. How to take this fake fiat money and turn it into a hard asset. So, let's talk about why we love Bitcoin. We love Bitcoin because governments can't control it. And banks can't make more of it. So you can't inflate it, and nobody is in charge. And obviously it's scarce. You can't make more of it. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. If you listen to my rhetoric, one of my, I think, novel contributions to the field is this idea, or at least I've never heard anyone say it before, is this idea that the floor of Bitcoin is also always rising. And the idea is just of how many Bitcoin I've lost, in today's value, tens of millions of dollars. Easy. It'll be it'll be billions lost in the future. And so, but that's because in part, I now understand, finally. I've been in this game since 2012, and I hate it when people say this dramatic shit like this, but for real, I've been in this game since 2012 or earlier. I think it was 12. First Bitcoin buy was $18 or whatever. And I held so much through so much of it. It was hard, but what is the point of it? So why I was so interested in it was purely because governments couldn't control it. That was the thing I was really just excited about. It was money that was outside the system, and that had a lot of intrinsic value to me. Now, and I believe this is in the original doctrine, the founding documents of Bitcoin, that states that it's actually really is a hedge against exactly what is happening now today, which is central banks printing money. So look at Japan's currency. It's been going down. I just started buying it because it's I don't know. You figure they'll work it out at some point. But why is there so much interest in gold right now? Why is Bitcoin elevated? And why does it seem to have such strong support, technically speaking? I think it is really because people all around the world are waking up to the fact that we're just printing money. So why they're taxing anyone who makes below, I don't know, man, $250,000, that's not that much money. $250,000, if you're in LA, that's baseline, that's really you have to give people a fucking break. You're going to get better output from them if you let them breathe. The government needs to take their hand off of the windpipe of the worker that they're exploiting just to get more production from them, just for the sake of efficiency, because it's now possible. So instead they're taxing people, making them fill out tax papers when they make $50,000 a year. It's madness. And people would be raging if they actually understood it. Maybe I'm channeling some of that future emotion that they will be feeling right now, because it is a gross injustice that the government will tax the poor and then print trillions. They'll print more than you could ever just imagine. I can't even think of it. It's there's this parable in the Christian theology of the widow's mite. And it means so much in the parable that the widow gave her piece because that's all she had. And then the rich man flings a coin that was 10 times as valuable in terms of nominal value. But the thing that Jesus valued was the widow's mite, because it represented a greater portion of her, wealth or whatever. It'd be like the other guy donating a percentage as opposed to a coin. And so why does the widow? Yeah, so like you're gonna tax the widow? That's crazy shit. And here's the thing: somebody in the government understands they're just printing money and they're taxing people. How is not? The reason I think people aren't talking about this all of the time is because I don't think they understand it. Because I didn't understand it until like 2 weeks ago. Not really, but like pretty recently. And so, yeah, like that's what I'm so excited about Bitcoin in specifically. And like, I've been in crypto a long time. I like all the other coins. I bought Pepe the Frog and like Mog Coin and all the other shit coins out there just for fun, just to play along, and so like the crypto world is fun, but it's and it'll grow and it's an ecosystem, but like it's an entirely separate ecosystem from Bitcoin. And I do wonder about Litecoin. I mean, I don't know, like what is so special about Bitcoin? It was the first mover. It has early adoption, it has the network effects. Are those unassailable advantages? Only time will tell for sure. But I think they are actually. I think they are. I think Bitcoin is here to stay. And because we like stuff like that, humans do. They like to collect stuff like that. And so people are going to hoard it and they'll collect it. And it's so easy to lose. It's so easy to lose Bitcoin. And so I think there's going to be a lot of collectors in the future that want as much as they can get. And there's just not going to be that much of it to go around. And so it's also, but like that's kind of just like a fun collector item. What the real hedge is, and why I think like the smartest money is like, oh shit, I better buy more Bitcoin for real. I better like, because, or gold or something. I got to buy something that they can't print. That's what I got to buy. So like they can't print land. They can't print Bitcoin. They can't print gold, but they can kind of print gold. A lot easier than they can print land or Bitcoin. That's for sure. And so that's what I think one of the things that I've learned about like money, like one thing I just wish I could just educate everyone on, which is just like, you really don't need like $1 million or $5 million. You need $5,000 or 25 grand a week, every week, forever, for the rest of your life. And that's actually harder to do than to get a windfall event. It's like a lot easier to stumble into like money than it is to set up a system that you get paid no matter what. And so that's one of the things that I want to explore on this show is like just those different forms of alternative income. Obviously you have real estate with houses and rent, but like everything has a responsibility with it. We want to find is like, where can we get the most yield for the least work, for the least effort, basically. I think a good source of that yield is actually in these new covered call strategy ETFs that hit the market in the last couple of years. Specifically, they're hitting the market right now. They're coming out all the time. I like the Yield Max ETFs. I've talked a lot about them a lot on the show. And basically, it's just another source of income. When you buy into these ETFs, you're basically betting that the underlying asset that they're writing calls against, it could be a single stock like Tesla, or it could be an ETF itself like ARK Invest or SPY or QQQ. Symbols for that would be OARK, JEPI, and JEPQ. And so what they do is they basically buy up all this underlying, and then they just like sell slightly out of the money calls. It's just a way to generate cash. It's kind of complicated. Doesn't matter. Anyone could do it, but they know how to do it. And so they do it. I do the same thing. It's harder than it looks and easier to lose if you don't know what you're doing. So it's like, you definitely got to know what you're doing. But the basic idea is like, okay, so what if I have a little bit of extra cash? Let me buy a block of 100 shares of a stock on a day that it's undervalued, or maybe on a day where the whole market is down. Once I break even on that, I will begin selling calls above where my cost average is. So if I bought it for $10, I'm going to sell a call for $11. And I'm going to sell that 3 weeks out on a day when the price is spiking. That's going to give me a lot of juicy premium, basically. Like I get a credit. So like when I sell that, like let's say I can sell that contract for $50. So like immediately I get that $50, and then I am obligated $50 per contract, by the way. So if you have like 100 contracts, or like you start anyway, you get the point. Those are real numbers too. Like a $10 contract should fetch you like $50 in 2 weeks. That, it's all depends on like this. It depends on a lot, but most of it is the price. Is it like $10 versus 100 versus 1,000? So when you do sell that call though, you get that cash immediately. That's just real cash. That's your cash. It's just a credit. Okay. And then after that 2 weeks is up, then you get to decide, or like the other person decides, I guess, whether or not they're going to call those shares away and force you to sell them at that price. But the idea is you win either way, because you win in the beginning when you get the $50 credit. And then worst case scenario is your shares get called away for $1 more than you even paid for them. So how is that bad? It's not that bad. And then, and you already got the credit. So now you're up on the credit and on the shares. And then what really is likely to happen is that the price goes back down, or not likely, but very well could happen, is the price goes below the strike price that you sold the call at and finishes out of the money, and you just get the whole credit and the shares. And then you can just repeat it again and again and again until they are called away. And then you just wait for another good time to buy. That's the idea of it. It's not easy, but it's made easy kind of in the form of these ETFs that are just launching. So check out the Yield Max ETFs. Basically, if there's a stock you're interested in, the top stocks they cover, I really think the best ones are probably JEPI. I've talked about that a lot on my different shows and podcasts I've done and stuff. And yeah, I think JEPI's a good one, JEPQ. Basically, what people need isn't money, they need income. And so, but because the government just prints money, even though they tax people, outrageous, we need a way to have something that they can't just deflate away, because the buying power of the US dollar is constantly being eroded. It is itself like a token. It's like Dogecoin. The dollar is Dogecoin. I love Dogecoin, but like when it push comes to shove or whatever, I want as much Bitcoin as I can possibly get. And I used to have a lot more. So like now we want to earn fake fiat money as much as that as we can get so that we can buy back in, of course, at a higher price, following the old adage that everyone says buy high, sell low, but most people sell low and buy high. It's very hard to reverse that trend. I mean, to reverse anyway, it's a trope in trading. So Bitcoin, JEPI, all these covered calls. Yeah. Like it's just a way to earn income. Now why do we want this alternative income? Well, you should want it just to like have a little bit of a safety net, right? So like, it's not that unachievable. Like anyone hearing this video, if you work at McDonald's and you find somebody to live with for a couple of months, you can stash away enough of these dividends to pay yourself a couple $100 a month for life. And then you'd have that for life. Now, when you really need cash, you would have to have the financial discipline not to sell it, which most people don't have, or haven't built, rather, I should say. And so you're definitely going to sell it, and then boop, goes your annuity, like your lifetime stipend is gone. And so the important thing with these dividends is just to let them ride. And then the idea is you actually, if you don't need the cash, you just buy back in more of the dividends and you get a bigger and bigger pile of cash. But like what I think is like kind of more interesting in what I'm trying to do, I basically want to get paid every 2 weeks in my portfolio and then just use that to buy Bitcoin dips and just convert 100% of the dividends to Bitcoin. Now, there's other things to buy. So like that's not really going to happen. But the idea would be actually let's generate as much cash as we possibly can. And then all future earnings I get from my YouTube channel, thank you, like and subscribe, share it with a friend, do anything to get me paid. No, for real, that'd be great. But like any future revenues I ever get will go into the cash flow generating machine, which itself is just a way to buy Bitcoin, is the idea. I haven't really done that, but I've been in markets for a long time, and I feel like I'm like now settling on this idea, which is the point of the game, of the money game, is going to be like, how do you get productive assets? Those can be companies, those can be real estate. And by productive, I just mean, well, those are productive. Like it's not just productive though. Like you want to get something that the government can't inflate away. And it is crazy how much money, seriously, just like imagine that we wake up and you found out that the US dollar is really Dogecoin and they've just like been making a shitload of it this whole time. Oh, that is what it is. I didn't know that. I'd have been buying more Bitcoin or like not selling the tremendous volumes I had. No, I bought cool shit with my Bitcoin, including more Bitcoin. So what does it matter? But yeah, like the price of Bitcoin has to trend towards infinity. It must trend towards infinity because it will be a sponge for global liquidity. And these are all completely new ideas for me. It'll be a sponge for global liquidity at a time when central banks around the world are playing the game, who can print us into oblivion. Now, there could be a very interesting side effect from all this money printing, which is it actually is going to spur a lot of growth, because guess what? Who's getting paid? All the VCs. What are they going to do with the money? They don't care about it. They just want the biggest score. So like, right? They want the most money. Anyway, so like, they're going to redeploy that back into the market. You're going to get people out there building companies, hiring, like, you know, getting people to work on stuff, sell it to that company. It's like a game where you just get a lot of those bacterias out and you try to get a big one or whatever. And everything's eating each other. And every time you eat something, you get bigger. So that's the world the VCs are playing in. And so, but it's not just them. Like the liquidity goes everywhere. It goes everywhere. So like China prints money. What do they do with that yen? They go and buy Manhattan real estate with it. So they printed fake yen. I mean, it's backed by their military, which like, I don't want to disparage it because maybe it's really good and they kill me for it. No, don't. Let's not even put that vibe out there. You know, anyway, damn it. It's already out there. China, be nice. Play nice. But for real, like, what is their fake money about? It's not about anything. They just print it. And so but then they buy a real place with it in Manhattan or Los Angeles or downtown Salt Lake City or whatever. Like, that's where I'm in right now. Salt Lake City, Utah. Shout out to all my Utards. I'm one of you. Sorry to disparage the Utards. No, it's a great culture. So what are we talking about? Yeah, central banks around the world are going to just be printing money over the next decade. They're just going to be printing it. Doesn't matter what anyone says, doesn't matter about Bitcoin. They're going to do it. They're going to do it because it's how it's been working. And they're going to do it for so many reasons. It's crazy. So it's 100% guaranteed in my mind anyway that they're going to keep printing money. There's no way to avoid it. And so knowing that, my game, the financial game I'm going to play, which would be nice to rewind 10 years ago when I first started buying Bitcoin with this in mind, that would have been crazy. But I had to have a lot of life experience to get there, I guess. Which is that, as they are going to be printing their currency into oblivion. Not really, because like I said before, the VCs are going to fund companies, and that is going to spur a lot of economic growth. But like, everyone is going to be participating more in the economy. And it's so interesting how that does naturally cause inflation, because if there's just more money around, then yeah, people can afford to pay a little bit more for stuff. And so that's like, obviously it was going to cause inflation when they sent out all those stimmy checks in COVID, which was unnecessary to begin with. The whole thing is such a disaster. It really is. But the disaster is going to keep going because like, they're not going to slow down on printing money. It doesn't even matter about interest rates. They're literally, it doesn't even matter. They'll lower those, but it doesn't even matter if they do. They're still just going to print. Congress, the U.S. Congress, they're going to spend. You want to know why? Because they can. Because nobody understands this shit. And so nobody's going to stop them, because the few people that do are benefiting from it. And so they're not going to stop it. And if you're listening to this on this show and you're like, okay, let's say that this psycho with no subscribers talking into a screen on the internet is like actually saying something real. Like, what do I even do about it? You do what, like, you hear everyone saying, what I've been saying for a decade, what you hear out there. You buy Bitcoin, and not maybe all in right now, because it is very high. But like, it might not look so high in 5 years. Especially when the value, the purchasing power of the US dollar is like eroding by a measurable and meaningful percentage every single year. So like, the right thing to do with Bitcoin is get as much as you can and accumulate on dips. And it sucks that you're buying in on all the OGs that got in for free. And you want to know what's worse than that? Being one of those OGs who sold out, albeit at 60,000 the last time, but still, and is now like having to buy back in, and not just hodling. And so then you're like, okay, well, what's the point of having all this Bitcoin? Well, first of all, the point is that you have to not have dollars. You have to have something other than dollars, because it's a token that they don't even do burns on it. They just print it. They just make more of it. And so the US dollar token is just like constantly eroding in the value of its purchasing power. Therefore, holding cash makes no sense. All cash should be deployed into, well, possibly generating instruments, cash generating instruments like real estate or businesses, or these dividend funds I'm talking about. Else, if it's a good time to buy, hard to say what that is, I would say buy Bitcoin. And then you're like, what about all the rest of Cryptopia? You know, like, there's ETH out there. Like, you don't love Sol. It's all good. It's all good. Like, I would just buy the usage. So Sol's a good one because people are actually building on it. Like, there's contracts being written and NFTs being minted, and all the ETH magic was now happening on Sol. And so that's an interesting competition. You buy ETH because it has first mover advantage in the contract space. And the just kind of like transactional, kind of like actual, I don't know, like building on top of the technology of blockchains in a way that Bitcoin isn't so much, whereas Bitcoin is more just strictly actually trying to combat this central bank printing, which, like, who knew? Like, you always hear about inflation, but like, it is rampant. It's rampant these days. And so we have to defend against that. And the only way, the best way really is to buy either real estate, Bitcoin, gold, or stocks. I think that's about it. And please comment if there's, like, I'm sure there's other stuff to buy, like, collectibles, stuff like that. Other things that have been proven to maintain art, obviously, will maintain and grow its value. but basically buy the rares in the video game. So like anyone who played RuneScape back in the day, when I was a kid, they had all of these rares that were like the most unique items in the game. And now in these days, they're worth like the maximum amount of money that the game can have, or whatever it is, each one of them. And why? It's because they could be destroyed and there was only a limited number of them. And so like, it's literally as dumb as that, but like, it's as true as that as well. That scarcity creates a demand, and it creates basically an entire economy on it, just based off the scarcity. And so when we want to value something like Bitcoin, what do we look at? Well, it's intrinsic properties. And people say, oh, it doesn't I can't even repeat it. Like, here are the intrinsic properties of Bitcoin that make it so valuable. A couple of them. There's like a lot of them. But one of them is just that you cannot make more of it. So there's a fixed supply. Easiest one to understand. There's only 21 million. There's never going to be more. It is impossible. People might try and trick you and say that it wouldn't be Bitcoin. So just know that there's 21 million out there. There's never going to be more. So you have a fixed supply. Nothing is like that except for these party hats in RuneScape. That's like that. Or whatever, that's just my video game. But like, name anything. The Mona Lisa, the whatever you would find in the Louvre, just like great works of art would be esteemed higher and higher value, not least in a economy where the underlying is always being inflated through money printing. So you're going to increase the actual supply of money, then yeah, obviously prices will rise. Like, how else could it be? It could not be any other way. And so that is why the price of Bitcoin will trend towards infinity, because it will sponge up all of this fake money that's being created. And I don't know what we're going to do about it, other than I think it kind of doesn't matter. And I think everyone kind of knows a little bit that it doesn't matter, hence the looting. Because if we really are entering into this AI world, which it seems like it could be true, and if that happens, then obviously that's the end of every human problem. Actually, it's the beginning of all human despair. More on that in a future philosophical episode. But the last thing you want is everything. And you're going to get it. and it's going to, you're going to have a whole new set of problems. And so the reason why everyone is going to get everything is because there will be no need to work. So whatever you do must be done for your pleasure and your pleasure only. And that is like not as easy as it sounds. Like, people kind of need a purpose. They kind of need a reason to go and do hard things. And if the Tesla bot can feed your family better than you ever could, well, shit, that's an easy path to despair. But we're going to build the Tesla bots anyway, because like, who gives a shit? We're going to build awesome stuff with it. Despair away in this world of luxury. Like, give me the luxury. I'll figure out the other problem later. And that is what the opulence that these automation, that the opulence that robotics, artificial intelligence, automation, crypto, and just a giant cost decline in every category that is part of our economy. All of those things are going to create an environment that is different than we've ever seen before. And so like, it's just people, it's like a 0 to 1. That's the way to think of it. Okay. So it's not incremental. It's like if you actually had a Tesla bot, all of a sudden the world was one day, and then it's like pre-iPhone, and then it's another way. So like, you remember what it was like before the iPhone, or I remember what it was like before maps, before even like, what was the maps in Alta Vista Maps, whatever, back in the day, MapQuest. But even like MapQuest, that was only like 5 years. Like, before that, we had a literal book called like an Atlas Shrug. Who knew what it was? but like it was all of these drawings, and you'd have to like find where you were in the drawing and then like look for signs around you and like try to match it. Now it's just like there's a blue orb and you make sure that you stay on the blue line and it gets you where you want to go and it's perfect every time and you don't even know where you are. And like that is a huge cost decline. Not fumbling around with maps in the back of the truck to figure out where you are is a huge efficiency boost for people. And so I think the idea of like why this money printing might not actually matter all that much, although I do think it's probably got to have some ramifications other than just the prices of everything or it's going to rise. And like, so that changes everything. But like, well, so what does it matter if the prices of everything rises? Anyway, I lost the thread there a little bit. But yeah, the broader point that really matters is just that they are going to continue printing this money. They are going to continue printing this money. And so if that is true, then the last thing you want to do is have $10,000 in a checking account. That's like literally the last thing you want to do. What you instead want to do is be deploying all of that into something that ensures you get paid every single month in different ways. And that can be real estate, and that can be these alternative income ETFs I'm talking about. I honestly think they might be the most efficient way, because just think about this. So like you look at like a fund like ULTI or MISTY, ULTY, MSTY, Y Max isn't that good. But anyway, they got a couple funds. They pay out over $1 a share. And it's because they're trading instruments that are so volatile. I don't know why they're not just farming volatility itself, but whatever. And then like basically if you buy into that ETF, they do profit sharing with you. And so that's pretty sweet. Like they're risky, they're complicated. The price is definitely going to go down. So you really want to be careful about when you buy. Like you can buy at the wrong time very easily on those and just get like screwed on your cost average. But like the cash flow is what matters. And so, yeah, like let's say you have excess cash flow because you've secured it, you have a job, and you've also been taking a portion of that job and you've been putting it into alternative income like ETFs or real estate. Okay, well, what should you do with that money? I really do believe that you should buy every Bitcoin dip. And then that becomes your real money supply. And whenever you need to actually, now you have to do this maybe for a couple of years before you can actually start getting the benefit of this. But like when you ever need to transact in whatever currency that you need to transact in, you do it at that time. That's when you sell, or I mean, with Bitcoin, you could like literally, anyway, that's when you sell and you go back into fiat. But just the idea that like they say like cash is trash sounds like a slogan, actually turns out to be super true. Yeah, it's real as fuck. Cash is totally trash. And it's because they keep printing it. They keep making more of it. They just sent $61 billion to line the pockets of Raytheon and whatever, I don't know, Lockheed Martin, whoever gets paid from those deals. And I'm sure they're not even domestic servants, like I'm sure it's like foreign international people getting paid as well. So that's the idea that I'm kind of trying to do right now is I'm trying to farm volatility and set up alternative incomes that generate the trash that I then convert into Bitcoin at opportune times. And then you would say, well, what's an opportune time? Purely technically speaking, you just look at the chart, right? Like wherever you find a long flat line, that's a good time to buy. Wherever you're like spiking up, that's a bad time to buy. And so maybe in a future video, I can show you more about like what I mean by that. But like, I could just tell you off the top of my head, like 60,000 is probably the good resistance right now. Then it would be like 51,000, then like 47, 44. It's not as steep of a thing. But you just look at the shape of the graph, and wherever there's like a horizontal level, that is a good place to buy. Now, we could easily break down to another horizontal level below that. So it's anyone's guess where the floor is. My guess is 25,000, but it could be a lot lower. But like, I do have this idea that like the floor of Bitcoin is always rising because they're so easy to lose. And I think a lot of people lost them. And I think that a lot of OGs that had a ton of the supply locked in wallets have just died basically of natural causes, nothing crazy, but just that's how long it's been. It's been 10 years now. So like a lot of those guys were like in their 40s and they had heart attacks and nobody knew they had 1,500 Bitcoin. Nobody knew it. They didn't tell anyone. And so like, boom, you're getting like tens of thousands of Bitcoin knocked out of the supply every single year. And that says nothing about the psychos like Michael Saylor who are just going to keep buying it and hodl forever. And if he ever needs, my screensaver, go back. If he ever needs to transact, then he goes into whatever currency he's transacting into. So yeah, that's basically the idea. Is the reason why Bitcoin actually matters is because banks can't make more of it, and the government can't control it, and it's transparent, and it's I don't know, it has all these intrinsic values. It's very scarce. Like there is a lot of different objective ways that you can value Bitcoin. So anyone that says it doesn't have any value, like what about just the scarcity value of something? What about just like if you look at a monkey and you say, hey, I got these 6 acorns, 3 of them have a red color on it. They're going to want those 3 acorns. You know it. Everyone knows it. That's just how it is. So you can like say whatever you want. People are always going to value scarce things as long as other people value them. Now, if one day everyone wakes up and they say nobody cares about handbags, then yeah, maybe Versace stock takes a hit. But, or I don't know if they're publicly traded, but like, probably not. Like collector items maintain their value remarkably well because there's a lot of excess money in the system and people value those things. So like, I think there's a really good argument that to have any amount of money in cash is basically a bad idea. Instead, you should build, and I understand that this is like not easy for people and you have to have a little bit of money even to do stuff like this, but like then go make some money or whatever, if you're young and getting started, find yourself a way to get 10 grand together and buy into this idea of generating alternative income for yourself. So that, guaranteed you have, whatever it is, $200 a month, 2,000, 20,000, 200,000. There's really no limit, right? And it's just however much you can accrue, obviously. And then what do you do with that income? There's a lot of different ideas I have about that, but just generally not holding cash is the idea. So that's it. Cash is trash. I agree. I've heard it as a slogan for years, and yeah, like now you hear it from me. So that's the show. Thank you guys.